He got up and he said, "No, I'm not going to make your job easy." And he smiled impishly and went away. The same afternoon, I was supposed to meet Rohinton to put up my plan of action. So I told him that I had a meeting with Mr. Bhathena, and he laughed. He said, "Yes, I know about it. And I want to tell you that you have passed the first test." This is ASB's way of finding out whether you would act as a yes man or whether you would have also your own ideas to talk about.
Right.
So you have passed the first test.
Hello everyone, this is Priyanka from the Corporate Communications team. Welcome all to the first podcast for Fireside. First is always special, and so is our guest for today's podcast. Mr. Gopal Gureja, an ex-Thermaxian, though we say a Thermaxian is always a Thermaxian, so I would like to call him a veteran from Thermax who has served the company for 26 years and was also a member on the board of directors. He is the author of 2 critically acclaimed books, Creating Customer Value and Organisational Schizophrenia. It is a pleasure and privilege to welcome Mr. Gopal Gureja on the podcast today. Welcome, sir, to the first podcast for Fireside, and it is indeed a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So after all these years, how does it feel to come back to Thermax?
It feels great anytime coming back to Thermax and interacting with people, and now, of course, this specific podcast.
So, sir, let's start from the very beginning. Your journey in Thermax started in 1970. How was it back then?
1970, first of all, I had my job interviews took place in Delhi, and twice, and then it was decided that I visit Pune factory before I take a final decision. For some reason or the other, it was the visit to Pune was being delayed, so therefore I conveyed my acceptance without any visit to Pune. However, when I got to Pune for the first time, went to factory, I was wondering whether I had made a good decision. The reason was that the factory shed that I opened the door into was less than half the size of the machine shop for the company that I was working for in Delhi. However, looking back at the way the interviews took place and that welcome to Watson letter, very fabled letter, and having met some people, it occurred to me that I am in a new culture, new world, exciting world. On the company side, the year that had gone, the turnover was 93 lakhs, which represented a 50% year-on-year increase from 1968 onwards. 2 or 3 service engineers located in each branch, but somehow they were not in a position to meet the rising demand on service engineers' time. So this is how it was when I came here, and I feel that Mr. Bhathena and Rohinton, they had begun to feel that the company is failing to meet its core value, namely customer commitment, and therefore they decided to have someone who would be fully responsible for customer satisfaction, and so they decided to have an all India service manager, and here I am.
So as you were beginning your career into Thermax, there's an interesting interaction with A.S. Bhathena that you have mentioned in one of your books.
Yes.
If you could share that with all of us.
Yeah, this was very interesting. After spending 1 week in Mumbai, when I came back to Pune, I was sitting at my desk and organizing my notes to prepare a plan of action in the forthcoming sales conference, which was to take place a week later. And I saw Mr. Bhathena walking towards my table. I picked up a chair from the adjoining table and he said, "I want to have a chat with you." This is what he said: "Many good companies, the service department, they earn money for the company, and I would like you to do the same thing. Don't be taken in by the sales engineers and the branch managers because they would exaggerate things, so you take a firm stand. Now, I was stunned because this was an antithesis to what I had imagined would be our plan of action. It was quite unnerving for me because this was the first time that I was interacting with the managing director, and was finding it difficult to kind of even break in. But eventually I found myself saying, if this is what you think, I'll do so, but I don't think this is in the long-term interest of the company. And besides, you're making my job very easy. Because that's easy. Pay, get service. He got up and he said, no, I'm not going to make your job easy. And he smiled impishly and went away. The same afternoon, I was supposed to meet Rohinton to put up my plan of action. So I told him that I had a meeting with Mr. Bhathena, and he laughed. He said, yes, I know about it. And I want to tell you that you have passed the first test. This is ASB's way of finding out whether you would act as a yes man or whether you would have also your own ideas to talk about. So you have passed the first test. So he actually described my job as the customer representative in the company, told me that you will make sure that every contractual commitment we meet fully, and also any reasonable commitment that the customers may have from us. Now that was a kind of giving me a carte blanche, and I was very happy, and I felt empowered when he said that in due course.
And giving you a free hand to really try and set the foundation and work so that we see the results. So when the managing director called you the customer's representative within the company, how did that particular word change the perception of yourself for you?
I looked at it as a very empowering statement, as if giving me the freedom to argue out a customer as if you are working on behalf of a customer. In any case of complaint, rather than looking at it this way that after all I have to look after Thermax interest, I got as a very positive way of describing my role, and I really made good use of it. In about a year's time, we were ready with the processes which are normally required for the customer to meet customer requirement, and that's the time when I discussed with some of the senior field engineers as to what more do we do to add to the customer value chain, kind of a cornerstone, some foundation on which to base our processes or new approaches. And one of them was, for instance, to realize that there is a mutuality of interest between us and the customer about keeping our equipment running at the peak efficiency most of the time. What is called in maintenance terminology, it's called the uptime. And I kind of persuaded the service engineers team that we don't have to look at each other as adversaries. Our interest also lies on our equipment. If it's Vaporex, so we would like to see the Vaporex working and delivering the kind of commercial advantage that it was supposed to give to the customer in the first place. So let us do everything possible to support the maintenance manager, and his success lies your success. Other thing was responsiveness is something in terms of customer's perception. Responsiveness is a factor which is an all-inclusive factor which changes the perception of the customer about the quality of service. Now, responsiveness is the way you respond to the customers, whenever there's a demand or there's a problem, the empathy that you show, the willingness that you show to solve the problem and find alternate ways. Technical professionalism is part of good responsiveness.
True.
Responsiveness also includes all kinds of interactions taking place with people, our company and the customer's company. So we have to improve our responsiveness, and time element is one of the key factors in that. I'm talking of discussing within the service department was that it would be in our interest to make these customers self-reliant as early as possible. And we keep in touch though, and we still visit once in a while just to check, are they feeling confident of, do they still need some help? Provide that. So that was the part, kind of stay in touch. This is important because quite often we miss out, and we only, when there is a service call, we go there. But we thought in some way or the other, if you are visiting customer A and there's a customer because of service call and there's a customer B nearby, go and meet the customer, say hello, find out, is everything okay? It doesn't cost us much, but it carries a message. Customer service, quality of customer service is largely dependent on what you call as the discretionary effort put in by the people.
True.
Discretionary effort comes in only if the employee, if the whatever level, whatever title, comes about when one is emotionally engaged with the company. You feel that you are doing something good. You are also contributing to the company's objectives, and we are meeting some requirement. So it is important to do things which encourage employees' emotional kind of engagement.
Right.
This should be a part of the service manager, and we did find that in fact most of the service engineers willingly agreed, and there were occasions when they would sometimes even cancel their social engagements late in the evening just because a plant manager called and says, "My God, my equipment we'll lose overnight production."
Right.
And they would cancel their social engagement and go and help. These cases only happen when one is emotionally engaged and one feels satisfaction in helping the. And also, as I said earlier, when I joined, there was low self-esteem. And now they started to feel better. Their self-esteem went up. They were welcomed by the customer rather than every time there would be a loss of face.
Yeah.
Now they are welcomed. As a service engineer, the first job, of course, is that of a technician. So you are the technician first, and there you have to be up to date on your knowledge. And the company, the back-end support means that you have to be provided, and we'll make sure that you will get that information, latest information required at the point of action, because then the service engineer doesn't otherwise subjected to embarrassment because something he sees he doesn't know about. But while you are attending to a complaint, you also take time to get the concerned people, the operator, the maintenance engineer, or if the plant manager himself wants, carry out a little bit of on-site training. Explain why that problem occurred and how did you solve and what they can do to solve. So act as teacher. Number 3, look at the possibilities of a future business requirement arising. Because people would talk, we are expanding, talk to the service engineers.
Right.
Incidentally, service engineer in capital equipment has the longest contact with the customer.
Right.
Because all that happens with the installation of the equipment and then till the equipment works. So a service engineer has the best chance of improving and strengthening customer relationships.
True.
So sometimes they will say we are expanding such and such activity, we are likely to need another boiler, and so pass on that information to sales.
Right.
And act as salesman, because while you are looking at the customers, suggest to them as part of the enhancing the maintenance effectiveness. So in a sense, he acts as a salesman. So in a way, it's one man, four different roles.
True.
And people started doing that, and customers kind of appreciated this very much.
So being emotionally engaged to the role that you are playing and taking the ownership completely is something that, and that is an important change that you brought about during that time. So we say that customer satisfaction is not a destination, but it's a journey.
Yes.
Because it's not a one-time contact that you have with the customer and it's over. After the installation, it's maintenance, and like you said, it's a long-term journey with the customer. So what were there any unique ideas or any new measures that you implemented so that customers were in touch with you and all their grievances were quickly addressed?
We also started on carrying out occasional surveys where a team would go and meet as per a plan, meet customers, and one of the things they would do, the requirement was the status of the equipment, the kind of the rating that you would give to the maintenance team. Number 3, the current condition of the equipment, and there is something more that we can do for the customer.
Right.
Also, we added in that, if you were to ask a question, the best thing for us to do is that the customers not only act as referrals. First of all, they have to be happy customers.
Right.
But then you can create conditions that they become the advocate of your. अरे वो खरीदना है तो थर्मोपैक खरीदो. And possibly you know that there was time that our competitor, when competition came in, they would get an inquiry, quote me for a Thermapack. Now Thermapack was a brand name, not a equipment name.
Right.
So they become advocates, and they will become advocates when
you have excellent customer service. Yeah.
It's important. We also I learned that the customers don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. So when they get that feeling that you are so concerned about working of my equipment, they begin to appreciate your knowledge, they begin to respect you, they begin to welcome you whenever you go there.
Right. And it's rightly said that for the sales and the service engineers that your business is our business.
Yes.
And that is why we need to cater to their needs on priority.
Right. In fact, at one time, our publicity campaign was that our business is to improve your business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Long.
Right. And all those things that you say, sir, are so relevant, and they're going to stay relevant to Thermax and to all the salespeople here. They are so relevant and can be implemented even today. So with ideas like this, and I think one of the most challenging thing is to delve into the psyche of the sales and the service engineers. So how did you get about having the mindset of all the people into one direction?
Yeah, one of my biggest problem, in fact, by 1973, our service had come to a level where customers wouldn't be in a position to say that we are lagging behind someone else.
Right.
However, our aim was not to stay there. Our aim was to excel, and create competitive differentiation. Now, that can happen only when you have an organizational culture. So by 1973, I said we were at this stage. Now, it was important for me to get my colleagues in quality control, R&D, engineering, to look at customer service the way the service manager or the company wants you to look at. Now, they were all very competent and committed engineers, each one of them. So there was no question of doubting their intent. They were emotionally engaged with the product. I created this Vaporex, I created Thermopacks. So don't talk nonsense about it.
Right.
So sometimes they would get into technical argument with the service engineer who was obviously less informed, or sometimes I took them to the customers, and customer also can't be as informed as our R&D chief or quality control manager or whatever. So they would enjoy winning a technical argument, but that was not our aim.
That's right.
Our aim was to win the customer. So at one time I requested the production manager to join me for meeting some customers. So we had selected, I think, 30 odd customers, and also a few engineers from various departments, and the local service engineers. They discussed with the production manager kya problems hain. So when we were ready, within a week, we were to put up this data to Rohinton and others. So in that meeting, all the heads of the departments were there. So when the data was put up, which was quite revealing in some ways, so no one had to raise any question. No, we don't agree with this. How do you say that? Because the production manager and many, they were part of it.
Yeah.
So when we were discussing that, and I also narrated some previous incident of having won the technical argument but having lost the customer. So I said, as a company, we have to look at it this way, that we have to protect our product and not defend it. We feel very happy in defending this because I can win the technical argument. And that is what we should be aiming at. Somehow this combination of words or phrase struck Rohinton was very happy to hear this. And he, almost like a judge, he said, yes, I think that's what it is. Let's think about it. And so that was the beginning of the organizational culture developing into customer first policy
approach.
in practice.
Right.
We also, at that time, we thought that we can issue a kind of another means of direct communication with the customer was hotline, a newsletter from the service department.
Okay.
Kind of a service manager talking to the customers or service department. And that was meant to, these were the regular features, training programs for the customers or for the service engineer planned during the next period. Any problems, and we invited the customers to narrate their incident and we will publish them. And also tell us if they had something gone wrong and it was not attended. So therefore, to that extent, it was open. So we will not mind even publishing that, because then we'll also add the solution. I think so that hotline was welcomed by most customers, and many also started contributing.
So, agreed. I mean, all the initiatives that you have undertaken, I think that has formed a backbone of the sales and the service team, and it is still relevant to everyone working and hearing you here today. What is that one message you would like to give the sales and service engineers, or largely to the young Thermaxians of today?
For that, if you allow me, I would use something which someone, the editor of a magazine, reviewed my book, and he culled out 11 commandments from Gopal. Now, I won't use the word commandments because that's very officious, but I would use that to maybe only some of them.
Right.
So I will rather read out from one of the reviewers of my book, from the editor of a business magazine, and he calls them 11 commandments, Gopal's 11 commandments. Also, many of these suggestions are well known to Thermax. In fact, I also learned from Thermax. However, there are some where people sometimes tend to walk away or tend to
overlook them.
Tend to minimize the importance of that. Now, one of them is outsource task, not responsibility. When we had this service franchisees, so they had their own service engineers, and they were initially trained, of course. But then they were not part of the same process that we had for our own service engineers, who would be called for training and retraining. The same importance was not given to the service engineers of the franchisees.
Okay.
Now, the customer, whether it's service franchisee or whether it's Thermax, they look at it as Thermax equipment. So whether you send A or B or C, we don't care. So we had to go back and make sure that these franchisee service engineers are as competent and regularly updated like our own service engineers, because otherwise they would not be in a position to provide the kind of service that our people can. Communication is the other thing. A strong communication, of course, is the most important for many things, internal as well as external communication. But one thing that many people lose sight of, that communication is not simply a conveyor belt, this thing that you put an information here and it goes to the other guy, and so you think the communication is complete. Communication is a stimuli, it's information, it requires change of behavior.
Right.
So unless that happens, the communication hasn't taken place. So this is important, because sometimes we tend to do, I sent you a message, I sent you an email, so therefore my job is done. No, it's not done unless the other guy has understood
Right.
and effectively used it. I'm just reminded of George Bernard Shaw, who at one time said, obviously decades ago, I don't know now, the biggest problem in communication is the delusion that it has taken place.
Well
No,
said.
yeah, that's it.
Right.
That's true. And rest, as I said, Thermaxians know about it. This is about.
But this is completely insightful, and talking to you has been a learning guide for myself, and I'm sure for all the viewers who will be viewing this and absorbing so much of information, insights, and taking our responsibilities seriously, prioritizing customer service. These all values, I think, that form the culture of Thermax, and we are the torchbearers, and that is why we should learn from all the values that have been imparted to us and carry them forward, because to be a true Thermaxian is what I believe. So thank you for sharing that. One more thing about when I started learning more about you. During the 1990 reshuffle, you headed the Enviro division, and subsequently you were nominated on the board as a member of the board of directors. So would you like to share some experiences from that time and any of the highlights?
Yeah, sure. Yes, I moved to take over Enviro division. One of the important things, which I thought was necessary at that point of time, we were talking about 20, 30 crores of our turnover at that point of time. I found that the customer focus needed to be sharpened. Also in Enviro, there were more projects-oriented jobs.
Right.
So therefore, we also needed people with a little more than just the technician, also people who could organize a project. That is one thing that was done. And that time, TQM was, many projects we were working on across the organization. I found in the Enviro division, we had some problems of cost escalations. And the reasons were that we would get, while working out the estimate for making an offer to someone, we'd get offers from various suppliers, suppliers of components, without any commitment that price would stay valid for 3 months or 6 months, depending on the life, on the time that project would take afterwards. So we used to run into that. So we had a few TQM projects. One of them was this one. This was very important. and we were in a position to bring about process improvement. So we made an organizational change so that responsibility is pinpointed for every product with one of the sales, one of the managers.
Right.
So I was there from 90 to 95. When I left, I think the turnover was 30 crores. And later, of course, I was happy to join that Enviro 1000.
Yes, yes.
So because
So
I think I'm, it was nice of the
Yes.
company to invite anyone who had ever been in charge of that division. And also at that time, I was asked to chair we used to have a TQM council. So I was the coordinator for that. I must mention this. The last year for me, was a kind of a light year from the point of view of, and it was done intentionally because Rohinton Aga wanted to see my book published. Because I must have told him a long time back that one day I'll write a book, and he kept on reminding me. And he also, so this time was given to me. So I completed my manuscript, submitted it. I was, of course, very sorry that he didn't live to see my book actually published. It was released in '97 by Annu, but he, of course, suddenly had passed away. For any managing director, any CEO, chairman, to be concerned about my book being published,
That talks volumes about
Yes.
Thermax's culture.
Very right, sir.
And we all feel privileged to be a part of such an organization.
That's it. So Thermax hasn't. You published last time.
Yes.
That's this thing. Thermax hasn't got out of us.
Right, right. Very rightly said so. And Thermax will always be with you, with us, with everyone who works for Thermax and on behalf of Thermax. I have learned so much from this, and I hope that all the viewers will take back valuable insights, and we will try our best to implement them in our daily lives, in our daily routine, and try to live by the values that you have so painstakingly imbibed in all of us, in the fabric of Thermax. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure.